take us.
Thank you. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Based on the part of the world you are joining this session, I am Surender Manral, Product Champion, Geophysical Interpretation at Schlumberger. I'm based in Stavanger, Norway, and today I will be moderating this panel for all of you. But before we hear from our eminent panelists, let me start with the high-level objectivity of this panel discussion. Uncertainty and volatile business environment has always been part and parcel of our industry, obviously along with technical, logistical, and operational challenges. Our resilience on multiple fronts have enabled us to sail through many of these lows in past. But we just heard in the opening session or the address, the current year is special. Apart from oil and gas price, moderate operational gains, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the very norm and has amplified the challenges multifold. Today, we remain to remain resilient, our industry must adapt and most importantly, remain competitive in a dynamically changing landscape. And obviously, digital transformation, be it IoT, elastic cloud compute, AI, analytics, you name it, has brought phenomenal opportunities for all of us. But rather than just restricting ourselves to discuss only these technologies, in this session, we will focus on adoption and the value the digital transformation has brought on the table so far. What are the key challenges we have observed so far? What are the emerging solutions? And what do we see on the horizon? Without any further delay, I would kindly request our esteemed panelists to quickly introduce themselves. We can go here with an alphabetical order.
Well, that's a complicated first problem to solve, but I'll go first. My name is David Hicks. I'm Senior Vice President of Upstream Energy at IHS Markit.
Yep. So I guess S becomes before T, with calculation. Sean Mackie, a vertical lead in the digital transformation team at Wintershall. So I'm primarily focused on all the initiatives that we're doing in the domain of exploration.
Yeah, and Trygve Randen, I am Business Line Director for Digital Subsurface Solutions at Schlumberger.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. The format of obviously the panel discussion is quite straightforward. I'll start with a question on a topic, and then the panelists will discuss and share their experience around the topic. I'm going to throw the first topic here is, I would like to hear from each and every one of you, what is your perspective in terms of the pace of the digital journey so far? And most importantly, we want to hear how successful we have been in scaling and adopting and creating value out of this digital journey so far. So starting with you, Trygve, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I mean, the pace has clearly picked up over the last few years, and I don't think there's any secret in telling that. You've all observed the attention to digital solutions in our industry, and more than ever, I think it's relevant now with the advent of COVID-19 and the significant disruption to our industry. The present and the future will be challenging for the energy industry, and we definitely need efficiencies. And that's where I see the biggest potential of digital. It is not a cost; it is an efficiency enabler, and not just in terms of turnaround times, in terms of quality of decisions. But the key challenge we have as an industry, I think, is to get the returns and to get it to scale. There's been a lot of experimentation in digital solutions in the industry, and we need to be bringing these into live action. That is probably the biggest imperative that the industry is in front of. Scaling is important. It's not easy. And one of the key things for scaling this is to work effectively and efficiently together in new constellations. We used to be creating technology pretty much in isolation in the past, and I would definitely dare to say that the last few years has brought a lot of new partnerships, both between different players in the supplier chain, and as well between the suppliers and the end customers.
Yeah, maybe
So
just
back to you, Surender. Oh, yeah, go on, sure.
Yeah, no, maybe just to add, Trygve, yeah, I also agree that I guess the pace has picked up quite significantly. I think this is also because we're moving out of this phase of experimenting with pilots to actually now having some proven solutions that we can deploy within our companies. And with that also comes, I guess, these challenges that you raised, taking it from this successful pilot fully into operation mode in a company with the IT support behind it, the tool monitoring, the upgrades. That is a key challenge that I think many oil and gas companies are not particularly used to, especially if they have some bespoke solutions. And also it's making sure you can get the adoption up and make sure that they're scalable, not only in one business unit, but across as many as possible. But I clearly see the pace is picking up, although there are, I think, still some skepticism in the air. I always remember a famous quote from Peter Thiel about, we wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters. So, it's maybe not as rapid as the initial hype had initially thought, but I think we're gradually getting over that hype curve a little bit and seeing some actual concrete results, which I think is what many people in the oil and gas organization have been anticipating and waiting to see.
Yeah, so I'll just echo a little bit and emphasize a few things that Sean and Trygve have already said, but I think one of the key pieces of this, at the risk of being a little controversial, keep in mind that this industry, our industry, is different truly than it's ever been before, and COVID and the pandemic is just one amazingly disruptive piece here. But pre-pandemic, when we think of things of this energy transition, really the supply of hydrocarbons, oil and gas now, the social voice, sort of the, if you will, the anti-fossil fuel voice. Our industry that we've known, and many of us have been through multiple downturns in, let's just say, the E&P space before, but there was always sort of a sense that, okay, so prices have dropped, there's a challenge, but the demand is there, will return, and things will pick up again. What's happened really in the last 4 or 5 years, I think, is a significant change for this industry. And we are doing a lot of work, as we always have in this space, in technology and improving things. But again, I would just emphasize to people listening to this that things you did that were successful 6 years ago are not necessarily going to be what's going to make you successful going forward. The industry is going to be significantly different going forward, and I do think we will ride this digital transformation wave to be more cost efficient, but also, for many companies, even traditional E&P companies, this move into this energy transition is going to be about cost efficiency, but it's also going to be about a changing business underneath your feet. I think about, for some of us, there were entire businesses about how to make a cross section or how to interpret a seismic line or a volume. We had entire companies built around this. That wasn't that long ago that was, for some of us, our main business on that particular field. Those aren't even really the same questions that are getting asked today or will be in the future. Not that there won't be a place for some of that. But again, I would just emphasize that the pace of change for this industry is really significant. So when we talk about, improving something at the well site or doing something here and there, valuable, of course, but I think there's a bigger question here. And for many of us, we've had success doing our things, all of us out there in pieces of this workflow. But now we have to step back and really think about the significance of what's in front of us.
Thank you, David. I do see we have Markus as well. Markus, it would be great also to hear from you the perspective of OMV, if you share some insights there.
Sure. So first of all, sorry that I'm late. I had some technical issues. Welcome everybody. I'm extremely pleased just to say that as well, that we are able to host at least virtually this first digital EAGE that makes us and OMV really proud. Normally planned in Vienna, but now we have to live with it for the time being virtually. So welcome everybody on board. As I was joining a bit late, I'm not sure if I got the question. If it is about the journey of OMV, I'm happy to say a few words. Can you just confirm that this is the right question?
Yeah, Markus. I mean, right now we're discussing what is a take of the panelists in terms of the pace, how the digital journey has been adopted. Do you see some value in scaling out these digital programs? So some thoughts around that aspect, yeah.
Yeah. So let me just quickly capture a few words on OMV's journey. We were happy that we started in early 2018 to develop an overarching strategy in regards of digitalization for OMV, and I think this is where we are profiting the most at the moment. So we were looking in 2018 how can a roadmap look like for the entire value chain in upstream in OMV on digitalization. We're setting quite ambitious targets. But the first 2 years, 18 and 19, were a key focus, as we call it, on renovating the core. I think this is something which a lot of other companies are underestimating. So we have done substantial investments into this first period, 18, 19, in putting the right infrastructure in place, putting the right tools in place, liberating the data, making that available globally, because that's the backbone to all the revolutionary things. When we come to the more revolutionary part in early this year, in Q1 this year, we started refining our program in upstream, setting precise targets, values for what we want to achieve in the end of 2025, and defining a roadmap. And then, as we all know, the pandemic hit us. But what was fantastic to see how strongly we were benefiting from the investments in 18 and 19, that our company and all our colleagues around the world were able to continuously seamlessly work. There were no disruption. One thing is, of course, on the technical work, but on the other hand, also our investments paid off, that we can remotely access our assets. So we were able to keep our assets, and this is, of course, beside the safety of our people, the utmost importance that our assets are up and running. Therefore, you need to ensure recertifications, repair work, and we have several very good examples globally, being it in Tunisia, in Libya, but also in New Zealand, to remotely certify our processes. So I think looking now onwards into the future, I believe that with this pandemic, we actually see even a boost in digitalization. The value got obviously proven, which we have taken, and now we are focusing, and I guess we come to that in our discussion today as well, a bit more precisely on what we do. But I just wanted as a start to say thanks. We started in 2018 with a clear agenda, and this year we highly benefit from our investments we have done so far, and we have a very clear outlook into the next years.
I mean, thanks everyone for your opening remarks. So let me move on to a bit more on the specifics, obviously, or to the level you want to kind of discuss those. So starting with Sean, if you can elaborate some projects which precisely so that you could scale up in your organization or industry as such. And just adding to that point is if you can highlight some of the key challenges which you have noticed so far in order for scaling those specific projects, and obviously the path forward.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think for Wintershall there, I guess one positive aspect when it comes to our starting point is, I guess recently two companies merged, Wintershall and DEA, and both had their own digital transformation team, quite different strategies. So at least when we merged, we were able to have a look back across both those strategies within the two different companies, which I guess is quite a unique standpoint, and then to reformulate the the strategy in 2020. So we saw from the XDS side that one key benefit from there was this data liberation story that Markus touched on. So I guess this is where we have a key partnership with Cognite to basically liberate our asset data onto a platform. And I think that is one key component that you need if you want to scale any applications that you're using across assets. So we're currently doing this on one German asset, Mittelplata, and one asset in Braga. And having both their data available in one platform allows any tool developed on Braga to be immediately connected to Mittelplata and vice versa. So we're doing that right now with a production dashboard solution. So it's like a production dashboarding tool on steroids. And this is with a company called EAGE. And this is, I guess, one of the first major solutions that we are scaling across assets and from ex-Wintershall and today. So I think this data foundation is a key aspect. Maybe when looking into the geoscience side, an area of focus for us this year has been on getting data from unstructured data. So being able to extract relevant exploration information from documents, PowerPoints, Excel sheets, etc. And at least this is a solution that I guess it's in one of the talks. You'll see Jim Fowler, I think, on Thursday in the Knowledge Graph 2 session, some details on this. But I guess we have a lot of information trapped in PowerPoints, trapped in well reports. And I think we have numerous legacy companies now merged. And this, at least for us, is demonstrating, or we plan to roll it out in the beginning of next year. But this should demonstrate quite considerable value in terms of being able to understand your basins, new venture and M&A activities much quicker. So I think that's maybe a high-level overview from the ex-Wintershall data side. One last point is we've, instead of focusing on many pilots, we've narrowed it down to 6 best bets. So this is really defining what are critical problems that we see, not just in one business unit, one asset, but across the board. And then we try it out in one area and then we scale it. So we've become very focused on 6 best bets rather than trying to digitalize everything at once. So this has been also a key change in our strategy and way forward, I would say.
Thanks, Sean. Markus, Trygve, or David, you want to pick this thread and continue on some specifics?
No, I'd just like to pick up on what Sean said on the data side. Data side is an absolutely fundamental piece, and that has been is one of the key opportunities we actually have with the digitalization and reinvention of the upstream workflows, is that we can now finally start getting the level of interconnectivity and openness between the traditional silos to materialize. And for our own part, we started developing data lakes and realized that we needed more than just a dumping ground of data, if you like, and built a whole data foundation, data ecosystem. And then the culmination of the OSU forum and the collaboration in the industry, we saw as an absolutely fundamental enabler for this industry to take the next step and break down some of those silos. This is for most, I presume most of you on this webinar are familiar with what it is, but it is a multi-company, close to 200 companies today, collaboration around building a data foundation for the industry that is shared across all companies and increasingly, I would say, all domains in the upstream and beyond upstream, actually, into looking as well as energy transition use cases as well connected to it. That for us has been absolutely fundamental, and we decided to make a giant leap for a company in our industry, I guess, in terms of open sourcing hundreds of man years of efforts into the OSU forum common repository. So that's an exciting part of the journey, and a journey, for example, where we're working or have been working very closely with Markus and a lot of others to bring this into reality for the industry.
Yeah, and that I think what's really interesting about OSDU is, again, for a number of us, we've been through some standardization efforts, but again, because I think of the challenge and I guess opportunity of the current time, something like OSDU feels as if it has a lot more momentum, and it kind of touches into this what Trygve mentioned earlier about the need for partnering and maybe looking at the world and our business a little bit differently than we would have again 10 years ago. I find it what's the right term? I want to say it's ironic, it's humorous that really we're still talking about data, and in many respects data management. And again, for most of us, and I assume most of the people listening, unless you are very young, you will know that we've talked about the challenges of data for a very long time in this industry. At IHS Markit, because we have a lot of information, we have a lot of content in Upstream, that we have research data, we have software products that are creating derivative data, but there's also obviously just a mountain, if you will, of global information that the company's been based on. It. We certainly are living the dream or nightmare in that we have picked up data sets over many years through acquisitions and built this thing up. We have a fantastic data lake across IHS Markit, but I would say that we still spend a tremendous amount of our time working and trying to make all that data accessible to customers and to partners, and this liberation of data that Sean mentions is dead on. So that's just a challenge that continues to be there. But I think it's more than just each company working with their particular data set and trying to do a better job. It's ultimately for this challenge, for this industry, that we make all that data available. And, the last point too, when we talk about data lakes and things like that, I mean, this touches on my sort of introductory remarks too, is that I think we need to look at data in a slightly different way. We have looked at it in a fairly siloed space of let's say upstream and subsurface information, and sure, maybe a little information about M&A or economics. But again, in this new world, I mean, the opportunity is to be able to ask questions through the beauty of data science and AI and ML. Now how many cars will be produced this year by Toyota versus what we think the global economic outlook is, all the way down to perhaps the number of chickens that will be bred and born, and how much fertilizer will be used to create the feed that's going to help those chickens grow. I mean, all of this is now interrelated, and there is a fantastic opportunity conceptually just to ask the questions that we need to ask that are going to bring all these variants, all these factors into play in a new way. But again, it all starts with this foundation that if I don't trust my data, if I can't get to it easily, and if it's not relatable, I'll never be able to ask more interesting analytical, or get more interesting analytical insights from that data.
Maybe I can add to that another perspective, what all the colleagues just stated. First, what I want to mention, we have done, as I said, with renovating the core, tremendous effort to standardize our data across our 10, 11 locations across the globe. That was already a major exercise. With the development of OSDU, then being even able to enhance sharing this data based on common principles with our partners, being it technology partners, but also being it joint venture partners, will ease the work tremendously. So we are a strong believer in OMV and OSDU, and are also participating in OSDU, and are in strong collaboration with Schlumberger to elaborate that further. The second element, what I want to bring into that, because we also have to talk about the value in the end of what we want to achieve with all this liberation and standardization of data. And that is for us making our projects, especially in this current environment with the oil price and the pressure on the industry, to make them more economic. And one way to make it more economic is, of course, to be much faster in maturing our projects. I think Peter Zeiling in the opening keynote has presented our ambitions with the 75% reduction to FTP, which is, from my perspective, a very progressive aim which we have. But that's what it's about. We need to see oil and gas much earlier than we have seen in the past to make our projects more economic. And behind all that is data and the integration, the seamless integration of data and the workflows of our experts working with. And this is why we are putting so much effort into this data topic now, and the automation of workflows, selecting the right partners. We can come to that at a later stage, that help us to build up our, what we call it, information ecosystem under the brand name Helios, which we are building up to have on a fingertip all that data seamlessly available, and we are well progressing on that. But again, I want to emphasize, in the end, it is about money, and we need to make sure that we contribute with digitalization to increase the profitability of that, what we are doing in our industry.
Yeah, thanks, Markus, and thanks everyone. We just touched upon OSDU or openness as such. If again, I would say that if you can all elaborate a little bit more about the value you have seen in terms with collaboration, the new norm of openness in our industry and how it is serving as a catalyst. It would be great to hear some insights from all of you very quickly on this as well.
Well, sure. I'll just jump in quickly. I would say, desperation makes for good bedfellows or something like that. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think certainly from our perspective, what we've seen in terms of the companies coming together, it feels a little bit more collaborative this time, which I think is important. It's key to remember too that as we look, I mean, it's a pretty major undertaking to try and standardize everything we're doing, but I do think that the OSDU effort is different, and one of the key pieces I see is the advent of kind of the big three. So you have Google, Amazon, and Microsoft all very much involved, and again, I would say that not that those companies in different ways haven't been involved, but their involvement in OSDU, they bring a lot of, no pun intended, they bring a lot of energy into this mix of more traditional players. It'll be interesting to see where it all goes, but it's been very, for me, it's been fascinating to see sort of a new approach when a Microsoft or a Amazon walks into our industry and looks at what we're doing with data and standardization and unstructured data. It's been fascinating and pretty refreshing to see how they look at that. So I just think that's an interesting addition as opposed to, I don't know, a POSC or some of the things that we've done in the past. That's also a flavor and an ingredient to the current OSDU effort that we haven't had before.
Yeah, I think a couple of fundamental differences, David, you touch on one of them with between POSC and OSDU, if you like, except, I mean, they're similar in their four-letter acronyms, but the introduction of these IT companies, which were clearly not present at all in the previous efforts. The involvement of a lot more companies, but also the previous efforts were standardization efforts, and arguably OSDU started out with a bit more of a standardization focus than what it is evolving to today. But being an open source, we as an industry and the digital part of the oil and gas industry, I think, has learned from the IT industry practices of moving forward at the speed which is compared to what POSC or Energistics and so on have been able to achieve, being standards organizations. OSDU is moving at a lightning speed compared to the other ones, and that's another interesting dynamic as well. And I think that's going to make it possible to achieve what maybe the grand visions for POSC and Energistics may have been, to be forming this information backbone for the industry, but arguably have never achieved quite. With OSDU, we have that opportunity to achieve that information backbone for the industry, because we can jointly as an industry move at the speed that's going to be required to establish that standard.
Yeah, I'm thinking, maybe just to also comment and maybe touch on the value side. I guess I mentioned these 6 best bets at Wintershall there, and I guess our promise to the board at this time, once we announce those 6 bets, is that we want to see 10 times the return of investment. So it's pretty bold challenge that we set ourselves. But I think the key into getting this value back is having these solutions that scale, that are not simply for one asset, for one business unit. They have to be able to be used by as many people as possible. And I think previously in digital transformation in general, it's kind of been focused on the low-hanging fruits, I would say, related to operations and production. It's very easy for you to do some monitoring on a turbine to improve its energy consumption or improve production. You can see that return of investment very quickly. But if you look in the domain of exploration, the value becomes a bit more fuzzy, and it can be harder to see that value extracted because you're mostly trying to reduce uncertainties or time to first oil. But it can be very difficult how your technology actually resulted in you reducing your uncertainty for that prospect that you were drilling, for example. So, but saying that there is much greater value in improving or decreasing the time to first oil than playing around with small amounts of production numbers. But I think that is a major challenge in the subsurface exploration domain, is really showing how your tool created value and how you have it down on paper at the end of the day. So I think exploration in itself is much more complex for companies to obtain that, I would say.
Yeah, just quickly jumping in, just a time check. We have around 8 minutes. But again, I think on the collaboration aspect, it would be great to hear from you, Markus. You and OMV been engaged with a lot of collaboration. And then we move on to the next topic.
Sure, I try to keep that short, but I really appreciate the topic. 2 years back, when we kicked off Digital Up, we were very quickly focusing what are potential partners we want to team up with. And one partnership which I really want to mention is Aker BP in Norway. 2 years back, we identified that we had similar ambitions. So we formed a very strong partnership with Aker BP and Cognite in that regards, mainly in the facility area and maintenance area. And what I really like in the meantime, how we are jointly developing products. This is, I think, from our perspective, quite unique, that we are sharing experience, sharing costs in developing those products further. The second strong partnership we have formed with Woodside, also, of course, a strong partner in our industry, together with Schlumberger in the subsurface area. So this is also a very, very good triangle where we can identify joint topics, where we can start exchanging its industry partnership together, bundled via a technology partner. I'm a strong believer in that, and we see how passionate and how much productivity we're getting out of these partnerships.
Markus, we have a fantastic question for the audience. I would read it out. What core E&P business process does panel see as a primary opportunity to scale digitalization? To just keep time frame in our mind, just let's be precise on our answers before we move to the next question. Any one of you could pick it if you don't mind. I just don't want to choose anyone here. So please start. David, you want to take this question?
I will throw in then, so I think for me, it's a little bit what we touched on. Core E&P processes, I still think that this issue of getting your data house together is absolutely fundamental to any of the processes you're going to do. But I guess what I would say, as concisely as I can ever be, is that this idea of, again, it's not going in and trying to build the best structure map anymore. It's really digitalization will help with what I touched on earlier, which is I have a question. I need to know whether I should develop this field or I should take my monies and invest them elsewhere completely, or whether I should perhaps invest in a wind farm. I think this level of business question is the one that truly can be leveraged by, again, a strong digital foundation of data, AI, ML. I think that level of questioning and business direction strategic is the core process that will help an E&P company today.
Maybe
I totally.
sorry.
Yes. No, I totally agree with what David is saying, and this has certainly been one of the areas, for example, and when Markus is mentioning the ambitions they have for scaling the field development planning, it's going to only be possible if you start from the top. If you start from optimizing individual work processes in the technical details, you're not going to get there. So taking a systems approach and addressing that, leveraging new technologies is absolutely critical, I think, to achieve the goals.
Very important. Anything I would have commented on that as well. Thanks, Trygve, that you took that piece. I think also to answer the question again from a different angle, I think every company dealing with digitalization needs to understand the strategy and their portfolios and their key priorities for a certain time. And I'm talking about what are you optimizing, what processes are you optimizing. I think this is something which we learned the last 1-2 years, to be very asset specific, production system specific, where you are putting in what kind of efforts in regards of digitalization to ensure that you also generate the value out of it. So there is not this one fits all answer. It needs to fit to your specific ambition, being it in exploration, being it in development, or to run your operations in a much more efficient manner. So it really ties back to your strategy.
Thank you, Markus, and thanks everyone. Again, just to keep ourselves on time, we have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to skip to the final keywords you would like to give to the digital leaders, how they can accelerate their organization digital journey. And if possible, please add to that a message to an end user, to a geoscientist, to a field engineer, if possible, what he or she can proactively do to embrace these changes and contribute to this journey. We can start with Sean, with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think one key message, especially to leadership, is that seeing a leader, be it your CEO, your senior vice president, if you do have 1 or 2 there that are really behind digital transformation, see the potential, have some kind of a vision in mind, direction, this really creates a mandate for the company and all the levels below. And at least that's something I experienced in Wintershall days, when you do have this key driver in leadership, it really sets the momentum and encourages a lot of ideas and conversations around the topic. Yeah, maybe as a message to field engineers, I don't know, geoscientists, yeah, I would say don't fear to try new technologies. So I think today, at least one challenge that we often find is that there are great solutions out there, but people don't have the time to try them out and to be first adopters, second adopters. And I guess it doesn't matter what week of the year it is, I guess we're always got a full schedule. But I think it would be great if people could set aside some time to try some of these new solutions being adopted. Yeah, be it the latest tools in geotech, earth science analytics, etc. And yeah, I think it's great to see actual end users drive this change rather than it being top down. So that would be my key message to them.
Next, Markus, Trygve, and David, please, if you can add. We have 1 minute left, but I'm still hopeful.
Okay, then I try to keep it extremely short. Have a clear target, and then make sure this target is understood, and then tie up everything to the target. I think it is important that it is measurable, and that you're not all over the place. It needs to be focused towards one target, and we need to mobilize the people to understand that as well. So we need to be crystal clear in our messaging and our ambitions.
Yeah, and time for playing around, doing non-scalable experiments is over now. Time for digital has come to deliver value, to deliver against that one target, real value. Yeah,
I'd say think differently, which is the theme here from everybody. But think differently to the people that are out there, and especially for those that are newer in the industry. Things that people think we're working are probably based on something from sometime in the past. Don't be afraid to be agile and fail and move fast.
With this, we are, I think we are done with our session, but I just see some questions. I'm just asking, can we take these questions now? We have, or we can, to the audience, we can actually reply to you through emails and follow up on these questions rather than answering them right now. So with this, I would thank our panelists for the great insight, especially EAGE for organizing this, and last but not least for the audience for their presence and their questions. As I said, we will follow up on the questions which you have put on the chat.